Quick introduction, a little bit about Roman, although he really doesn't need much of an introduction. After practicing immigration law for a couple years, Roman left actually working as a lawyer, got a job in tech, and eventually launched an immigration tech startup called Laborless, which is still running today. To raise awareness for Laborless, Roman leveraged a decade of improv theater and writing experience to spread the word on LinkedIn, which led to launching a second venture. Roman now works with lawyers and other founders in the immigration law space, helping them grow their personal brands on LinkedIn and thus grow their business as a result. I've learned a ton from him. Roman, welcome to the Law Firm Growth Conference.
Thank you so much for having me, Lay. I'm excited to be here. And hi, everybody. So we have a lot to go through today. We have about 30 minutes, so I will be talking quite a bit. However, I I would love to get questions throughout. So please, if anybody has questions while you go, I will try to answer a few of them as we go. There might be more questions than what I have time to answer. So I actually realized that I'm looking at my presentation. I didn't put my email address in at the end of the presentation, but hopefully, Alay, will you be sharing our presentations with folks and or our contact information?
Yes, they're going to get all of that.
Great. So I can also, you know what, I'll send you an updated presentation and that'll have my email address on it. So let me know if you can see my screen.
Yep, we can see it. It says work with me.
Nope. Uh, there you go. I was checking
There
the
we
last
go.
slide to see if I had my email. Okay, great. All right. Well, thank you, everybody. And again, please, I think in the chat, right? I think we're using the chat function and not the Q&A function. So I definitely, right, LA?
We're using both.
Both. Okay, cool. So whatever folks want to do, I will be sort of monitoring both of them. So as LA said, I am Roman Zelichenko, former immigration lawyer turned entrepreneur, and now run a couple businesses. Really, I leverage LinkedIn to grow both my businesses. So as LA said, started a software business that is geared towards immigration lawyers and to raise awareness started using LinkedIn and posting articles and other sorts of content and started networking with people and connecting with folks and it sort of it worked. I went from being a nobody to being a somebody and then eventually to being somebody that was not only getting clients but being invited to speak at conferences and contributing to articles and webinars and things like that. It was just such a wonderful experience. So I wanted to share with you. I started sharing tips actually along the way because it was such a transformative experience for me. This platform that I could really leverage while sitting at home and typing away on LinkedIn and chatting with people while I do other stuff. It helped me get in front of so many of my peers and colleagues and eventually clients. So I started sharing tips along the way. And what I want to do is condense like the most basic and high level information that I can for you today. If you follow the tips that I talk about today at a very foundational level, you will level up your LinkedIn game. If you don't use it at all, excellent. Even if you do use it today, I think you'll find at least some things that will help you level up your LinkedIn game. Why did I share this picture? It's a little bit of a kind of foreshadowing for the theme of the presentation, sort of. But if you notice, I have a bird sitting on top of my head, and I used this picture a couple of times on LinkedIn, and the point was, using it to gain some eyeballs and to catch some people's attention. And that's really what we're trying to do on LinkedIn. So let's get started. Very basic context in 2024 and beyond. Why is marketing your law firm on LinkedIn important? So three main reasons. So the first reason is, oh well, I have a comment here already. Christian says, want to let the audience know how much I learned about LinkedIn from your posts and interacting with you. That's super nice. Thank you, Christian. I appreciate that. So in 2024, why is it important to be on LinkedIn? So first of all, this is a current stat, 1 billion users. It's probably a little bit more, but for sake of clarity, LinkedIn officially says 1 billion users in over 200 countries and territories on LinkedIn, right? So everyone talks about TikTok having a billion users, Facebook, Instagram, et cetera. So does LinkedIn. And folks don't often think about it that way. They think about it as a resume, digital resume, or a place where you go to only when you're looking for work. Not true. It is a social media platform. A lot of my co-presenters use it actively and they share tips about it as well. It's a wonderful place. So there are a billion plus people. That means your clients are on here. Now more than ever, I believe you can build real trust and real relationships through LinkedIn and online in general, but specifically through LinkedIn. And if you have a really clean profile, if it's built out, if you create valuable content, and you really are kind of true to communicating with folks, you generally genuinely can build relationships the way that you would in real life. Um, and LinkedIn is an amazing way to keep in touch with clients and prospects, frankly. Some people have regular email sort of blasts that they send, or other things that go directly to folks. What I really like about LinkedIn is that it's a little bit passive. I mean, yes, there is an algorithm that maybe does not guarantee that you're going to get in front of the clients, the same folks every time, although there is a little bell icon which folks can press to always get your, notifications of your content. But when you're passively keeping up with folks, it's sort of, it's kind of a gentle way of saying, hey, I'm still here. I'm still posting and talking about these things. I'm still an expert. And, if you need my help or have any questions, let me know. And it's a really wonderful way to keep in touch with folks. So really important in 2024. So we're going to talk about several things. Let's see. Next slide. We're going to break it. I break LinkedIn down into three main aspects. And these are by order of importance, by the way. So the absolute first thing, if you're going to work on anything or double check something about your existing LinkedIn profile, it's in box number one. So your photo, which is obviously your picture, your banner, which is that sort of rectangular image above your picture, your name seems straightforward, but I'll get to it in a second, and your kind of quote unquote headline, which is that kind of sentence underneath your name. So super basic tips, your photo. A lot of people use whatever photo they can find. If you can, especially now, we all have really great cameras in our phones, right? Take a photo of yourself, make sure you're smiling, make sure you're looking at the camera, make your picture inviting and presentable. I'm not a huge fan of super corporate pictures. Obviously, the folks in the audience may be different types of attorneys that work with different types of clients. But honestly, even corporate clients, financial clients, et cetera, they don't necessarily want to see that sort of really buttoned up picture anymore, or they're more open to a more casual photo. So highly recommend checking out and making sure that your photo is the kind of photo that makes people feel that they can work with you and trust you and want to like you. The banner above your picture, some people ignore it. And so LinkedIn gives you this sort of default blue and gray image. It is really the only place other than your picture where you can have an image that exists on your profile to give your profile a little bit of character. And so make your banner something that speaks to your audience. Now, there are different philosophies. You can use it as an advertisement that says, I practice immigration law, or specifically immigration law for corporates, for startups. If you do family law, corporate law, whatever it is, you can use that space as a billboard, if you will. But you can also use it for other things. I run a software business, so I actually use the banner to have a screenshot of my software. And that subconsciously tells people, here's what the tool looks like. If you're coming here to learn about immigration compliance software, this is the place to be, et cetera. You can also put a picture of where you're based or something like that if you want to be a regional attorney. Let's say you're based in San Francisco and you handle matrimonial law in San Francisco. Maybe you have a picture that sort of represents that, et cetera. My theory, philosophy under name and headline is this. Your name obviously should be your first and last name. I like to put, I don't practice anymore, so I put comma JD. I recommend for attorneys, especially if you're practicing, to put your first name, last name, comma Esquire, right? Or JD, whatever you'd like. The reason for that is that typically what people do is they put their first name, last name, and underneath on their headline, they would say, managing partner at law firm of Roman Zelichenko, or lawyer at, or something like that. But what you really should be doing, or should consider doing, is by putting Esquire JD in your name, that already tells people you're a lawyer. And so then instead of that, you use the headline to explain very succinctly and directly what you do and for whom. So instead of Roman Zelichenko and underneath saying lawyer at Roman Zelichenko LLP or something, I could say Roman Zelichenko, comma Esquire. And if I'm an immigration lawyer, underneath it on my headline, I could say immigration lawyer for tech startups in New York City, Boston, and Miami. for example. Super specific, what I do and for whom. And if you have those things, those four things are at the very top of your LinkedIn profile. Somebody gets into your LinkedIn profile, boom, it's clean, it's direct, it's concise, and it automatically builds trust and expertise. So second in line, your about section. This is sort of your biography, or really it should be your autobiography because it's your personal LinkedIn profile. Um, a lot of people don't have anything, so if you don't have anything, consider putting something there. Other folks, especially attorneys that maybe work at a law firm, perhaps more of a corporate setting, might have sort of copy paste from something on from your firm's website, especially in the third person. My recommendation, my thought is make your about section something that you would tell someone at a conference or a social event after the conference or during the conference. If they say, "Oh, so what do you do? Tell me about yourself." Then first of all, you would definitely speak in the first person. I would be, it'd be funny if you spoke to about yourself in the third person. Maybe you do, no judgment. But first person for sure. And then you wouldn't, talk about magna cum laude this and the fact that you're in chambers for top lawyers. You wouldn't say that to somebody if you're speaking to them live, at a bar or at a conference. You would just say, "Here's what I do, and maybe here's how I got into it. Maybe here's how long I've been doing it, etc." Make My recommendation, make your about section that kind of introduction. It makes it easier to read, which means folks will go through it. And if you really give people an understanding of who you are and especially why you do what you do, it gives them a better understanding of whether they should connect with you or perhaps even work with you. So it's a really great. I've actually had people message me and connect with me on LinkedIn and message me and say, "Hey, I read your about section. I thought it was really interesting. Can I ask you a question about X? Something about my about section." And that to me was such a great sign that what I put together was readable and kind of landed with them. Experience section, obviously, it shows where you've worked and what you've done. If you run your own practice or work at a law firm, just make sure that your experience section lists where you work. Again, I would get rid of like in bullet points that say increase client count by 50%, worked with, corporate documents, et cetera, et cetera. Don't make it sound like a resume. My recommendation, write in human language what you do, maybe some accomplishments you've had, maybe a notable client experience you've had, et cetera. Make it so that, again, if someone's on your profile reading your about section, your experience section, they will have an understanding of what you do and perhaps some specifics about it. So for me, these first two things, if you have this, you're basically good. There's so much more to LinkedIn profiles, languages you speak. You can get recommendations from people, publications. There's so much more. But my belief is that if you get one and two, your profile is, minimally complete to the extent that if someone goes on it, they'll say, "Wow, this is somebody who pays attention to their profile." Quick Q&A here. What do you think of using the pronoun space for title or USP? Not judging, just seeing people do that. I think it's fine. I mean, I guess I don't have a specific opinion on that. Thank you for the question, Craig. My view is use LinkedIn, use all the real estate you can, to the extent that you can. If you can put that kind of information in the space where there are pronouns, great, try it out. Worst case scenario, this is the other thing I always say, your LinkedIn profile is under your control and it's dynamic. Try it out. Maybe it's too small. Like if you actually notice the pronoun space is quite small. And so maybe it's going to be too small for what you want. And so you're not going to like how it looks. Then you could delete it and put it somewhere else. Experiment. There's nothing wrong with experimenting. My profile changes very slightly all the time because I'm always playing around with it to see kind of what looks better or worse, what's good, etc. Okay, super briefly, I'm just going to list these out. There's more types of content, but the main types of content you can share in order, from my perspective of importance. Number one, you could share images, right? I'm not saying this is Instagram where you're going to share what you had for lunch and 10 pictures, but as you're scrolling through your LinkedIn feed, images tend to catch your attention. And so I've noticed over the many years I've been doing this, and I'm sure the folks, other presenters here as well, would say that if you have an image, whether it's a picture or a video or a presentation, document like you see below on number 5, it's going to get people to stop scrolling. And then, of course, they look at the actual text behind your post. I'm not saying this is always the case, but I am saying that there's a higher likelihood that content does better, more impressions and more engagement from folks if you use, something that's visual. I like to do images. I have found that images perform better than videos on LinkedIn. That being said, images are static. videos, while they may not get as much reach on LinkedIn, meaning it's not going to be seen most likely by as many people, the people that do watch your videos, they don't just see how you look, they hear your voice, they see your body language. They kind of, it's a little bit more intimate. They get to know you better. And so that actually builds, I believe, a stronger reputation, but with a smaller group of people. So you can switch between the two, right? Or if you're just the kind of person who loves being in front of a camera and doing videos, great. Lean into the thing that you like and that's comfortable for you. And I'll get to that in a moment. But those are the two things that are best in my view. Text only, a lot of folks do this and they're quite successful. You can do LinkedIn posts obviously without any imagery, just text. There you really have to make sure that the beginning of your post is very captivating so that somebody who is scrolling by, they see it and they immediately want to stop and read what you have to write. Obviously, some people use emojis for that. Other people use language that's a little, that's sort of captivating, a hook, if you will. But something to consider. 4, 5, and 6 are a little bit less sort of popular, but they have their own pluses and minuses. You can publish articles on LinkedIn. LinkedIn has its own kind of almost like a Word document or Google Doc tool, and you could publish articles on LinkedIn. Those used to do really well. I used to publish articles on LinkedIn. Personally, I stopped doing it, but some people still do it. I publish stuff on my blog and link it to the blog. But LinkedIn also has a newsletter feature now, and it's quite popular. I know a number of people. I haven't made one yet, to be honest with you, but I know a ton of people in my industry, in the immigration law industry, who've created a LinkedIn newsletter. I subscribe to it, I follow it, and they have reported to get a ton of subscribers, relatively speaking, in a short period of time. It goes to your notifications when you send out a new newsletter, and it often goes to the person's inbox too, the email address that's tied to their LinkedIn profile. So it's not like an email newsletter where you own their email address, if you will. So you are still beholden to what LinkedIn does, but LinkedIn has been pushing newsletters quite a bit. So I've really liked it. You can share a document. This is great. If you have a PDF that has, top 5 things you need to know for a marriage-based green card, or, if you're going through an uncontested divorce, here are some things you should consider. If you like to give out that document at, free events or to your prospective clients or whatnot, and has your branding on there and your contact information, you can upload that document onto LinkedIn and have people download it as a PDF. Number one, they'll have it available to them. Number two, it's got your branding and effectively it's a business card. So you can upload that as well. And then finally, you can create live, you can have events. I didn't use audio only. If any of you remember Clubhouse, that app that blew up during COVID, but you can also do that on LinkedIn, an audio only event. But more importantly, you can have live events. So put something together at a local, I don't know, local bar association, maybe a lunch and learn or breakfast thing at your firm, et cetera. You can create an event page on LinkedIn event and invite people to it. And then you can also stream on LinkedIn. That's what I do. I try to stream about every week. I have an interview show where I interview immigration technology CEOs and founders. I love doing it. And it's an easy way for me to effectively create videos, right? What's not in number 2, but do it live with an interactive format where folks on LinkedIn can see it and comment, et cetera. Quick question here. No, it's LA. Telling me I have 15 minutes. Great. A few ways to level up the quality of your content. And when I say quality, I kind of mean not just what you're writing, but also how it performs. So make sure, approximately 100 to 150 characters hook in the reader. This is because really long texts on LinkedIn collapse. And if you ever notice, it says see more. And so you want to get people interested in what you have to say before that see more button. And so the first 100, 150 characters should be really important. Add white space in your text. What that means is literally break up the text with some empty spaces. Otherwise, it's a long block of text, hard to read. As I said before, add a visual because it really helps stop people from scrolling and catches their attention. In your text, in your content, add a call to action. And this doesn't always have to be reach out to my firm or leave a question below or a comment below. Yes, those may be good if you genuinely are posting something that requires or where it makes sense to have that kind of call to action. I also think other passive calls to action are really good. So for example, sometimes I share content that isn't tips about LinkedIn or immigration technology, but maybe it's a personal anecdote about how I had a really wonderful experience with a colleague that made me feel really appreciated as an immigration professional, whatever. And so maybe my call to action is, whenever next person you talk to today, say something nice to them, right? Like not a call to action that relates to me, just a general call to action to that, the person who's reading. Think about more creative calls to action. It makes your content engaging, and it allows you to not have to write, contact me every time, which then starts to feel like a sales pitch every time. So um, definitely try that. And then finally, be creative and personal in order to be memorable. I mean, genuinely, even if you're writing, again, I'm going to go back to 5 tips about green cards, for your client. You can just make it sound like a textbook, or you can say, make it personal and say, I just had a client that finally got their green card after waiting for 20 years, and it's changed their life. Here are 5 most important things that I told them along the way. And you could sort of mention those 5 things, and maybe even in the description of those 5 things, tie it to that client's case. I'm not saying you have to name the client or give any specifics, but you can share it in a more kind of personalized manner, and that content will be more memorable and therefore kind of more effective. You do these things. You don't have to do all of them. You don't have to do them all the time, but think about them. When you're writing your next piece of content, this is easy to do, right? So think about adding these things and then watch how your content does, when you implement some of these things versus maybe previously. Okay, you create great content. That's not enough, right? You want views, and I'm not saying views for the sake of views because it's not about the numbers necessarily. You want to create engagement. You actually want to build your network, build your reputation. And so and also the more people you reach, the more you help them with your content. And obviously, of course, the more potential business you get. So encouraging engagement. There are a few ways of doing it. These are the 5 ways that I do it. I still do it this way, and I recommend this to all my clients that I work with around marketing. Like and reply to every comment. All right. This sounds silly, but I've seen so many people get, a ton of comments and they just like every single one of them. And that seems like enough. But my recommendation is always reply to them as well. And by the way, if you said something like, "Oh, I'm so excited, I just got promoted to senior associate or partner," or "We just opened up a new office," or something where people only say congratulations, this is my philosophy. I'm not saying you have to do this, but not only do I like and reply to every comment, I wouldn't copy paste and say thanks, 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 because people subconsciously, they feel that that reply is canned, it's automated, it's not for them. So what do? I might still say thanks to every single comment, but I'll say it slightly differently. So the first person I'll say, Joe, thank you. The second one I'll say, thanks so much. And the third one I'll say, thank you, I really appreciate it, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And if people see that and in their minds, they do feel and they believe that you're really responding to them genuinely. And by the way, you are, right? Because you are taking the time, the 5 extra seconds to write something. So always like and reply to comments, and preferably as quickly as you can. Post at a reasonable time, i.e., when your clients are, in my view, awake. If you're an immigration lawyer in the US, but maybe your target clients are in Europe, right? You help European entrepreneurs move to the US on a visa. Post at a time when it's morning to afternoon for them, right? Don't post at a time where it's afternoon for you and they're already going to bed. So think about that. If you have first, I did this in the very beginning. I still do this sometimes. If somebody who is a first connection of yours likes and comments on your post, send them a DM. Doesn't take very long, but you might send them a DM and say, "Hey, LA, thank you so much for liking my comment or liking my post earlier today. I really appreciate it." It's just a small little thing that makes them feel really great about the fact that they're engaging. Um, so here, Christian says, say what you appreciate about the person or that they got a new job or promoted. So happy for you. Yeah, exactly. So if somebody's leaving a comment and they're or rather, I guess this would be if you're commenting on someone else's post, don't just say congratulations, say something that is really kind of specific to the content they're creating. Okay, so people are liking your post, they're commenting on your post. Your first degree connections, they're liking, commenting, you reach out to them in the DMs and you thank them. It's really nice. Sometimes it sparks a conversation. Maybe it's someone you haven't talked to in a while, etc. But then you're going to have second and third degree connections, right? If your content does well and it reaches a lot of people, you're going to have second and third degree connections who also like and comment on your post. What do? You go through that list and find people who you think will be beneficial to you or relevant to you or interesting to you, and you reach out to them. And when you reach out to them, you send them a note. Don't just hit the connect button, click on add a note and write, hey, thank you so much for liking my post. I'd love to connect with you if you're open to it. I always end with if you're open to it. I think it's a subtle way of giving them the opportunity to decline. And when you do that, it feels less forced. And in my view, they're more likely to connect. And then finally, people, there's this thing called engagement pods where you're in a group of people and everyone shares their content. The social media platforms do not like this. But I think engagement pods are kind of lifeless, and it's kind of what they say, likes for likes. You like my post, I like your post. I don't like that. I believe though, if you're in a group of lawyers and you're all sharing great quality content on LinkedIn, let's say there's 5, 10, 15 of you, share whenever, this is what I do with a close group of people. I'll share my content with them and they will go in and like it and comment on it. And they'll comment something substantive. And so it's a really nice way of almost guaranteeing some engagement on your content. And then also, frankly, keeping up with what other people are posting and sharing with them. Quick, yeah. I know I'm talking a lot. Please, folks, find me on LinkedIn, etc. I'd love to answer questions about this. I don't have time to go into a ton of here, but I love this stuff. Sustainable content creation strategies. People get burnt out. Sometimes I get burnt out, even though I post basically daily. For me, these are some ways you can do this sustainably. Obviously, take a look at this list. My biggest thing is number one is I lean into sharing personal stories. You might think, well, why does anybody want to hear about my life? I'm a lawyer. They just want to hear legal tips. Not true. If you're with them at a conference, again, they will be interested in, oh, well, what kind of sports do you like? What are some of your, hobbies? When you travel, where do you go? Things like that. If you can find a way to tie it back to your work or your career, even better. But sharing things about you that are personal are easy because you're talking about something that, is just a story or an anecdote from the past. And it also is engaging and it allows people to get to know you. And if they get to know you, they will kind of remember you better, like you better, et cetera. So I lean into that quite a bit. And some of these other ways, repurpose research. So maybe you've done a memo for a client, repurpose it, turn it into a blog post. If you have a really long article that you've written, take it and chop it up into bite-sized pieces, and those could be separate LinkedIn posts. You have a blog, turn on the camera, read that blog out loud, boom, you've got a video. You want to interview if you're an attorney in, let's say real estate, and you want to interview real estate owners, boom, LinkedIn Live, host a show, etc. If you can find ways to make this sustainable and even fun for you, LinkedIn is never going to be a chore. It's going to be the best content strategy that you can possibly have. Lastly, use AI to help you post on LinkedIn. I see people posting, copy pasting from ChatGPT all the time. I don't like it. I can tell when they're doing this. And frankly, a lot of other people can tell too. But it doesn't mean that you can't use it. So here are 3 ways that I think you can use LinkedIn. And frankly, you can do it as step by step, 1, 2, and 3. So number one, go to ChatGPT, for example, or your AI tool of choice. Share a little story. You can add a couple sentences and just tell ChatGPT, prompt it to create a LinkedIn post for you using that story. It'll write something that doesn't sound like you, but it has the bones of a LinkedIn post. Number one. Number two, or sorry, I meant to say create some themes or create some LinkedIn post topics. Number two, go to ChatGPT, take one of those themes and tell it to expand it into a draft of a LinkedIn post. And then, of course, you can use it to edit your style. If it comes out too formal, you can say be more informal. If it comes out too informal, you can tell it to be more formal. And then when you have something that you really like, make the final touches of yourself. Make it sound like you. Double check what it's saying. Obviously, if you're giving like tips about legal, any aspects of the law that you practice, make sure, of course, that it's correct. But I think AI is really great. I use it sometimes to double check what I'm writing, etc. So I hope that's been helpful for you all. This was so much information. I wish I could have had another half an hour, but so many great speakers. So thank you all for being here with me. Please find me on LinkedIn, Roman Zelichenko. I didn't put my name here again, but you'll get the presentation. And I did, just because we're here, I wanted to give basically a promo to folks. One thing that I thought would be useful for folks here, if you actually want to lean into LinkedIn, I do LinkedIn profile audits. So I look at your profile, give you a report of what I think is good and what I think, more importantly, you can lean into and sort of make it better. You get a report out of it, and then a one-on-one hour-long consultation talking through your profile and LinkedIn strategy. It's usually $600. So here I'm offering it for folks for 450. If you want to do this in 2 months, 3 months, and you were here at this presentation, I will obviously award or honor this deal. So hit me up. And even if not with this, find me on LinkedIn, ask me questions, and let's chat. So that was a lot. I hope that was valuable and interesting. So thank you so much for having me. This is a lot of fun. Speed round.